Hi guys, I'm Never. Welcome to the channel again. Today we're going to be doing another Dragonheir Silent Gods video, and we're going to be covering one of the lesser used wild legendaries in the game, Rash. See, Rash unfortunately doesn't get much of the spotlight because when it comes to wild teams, the first thing people think is Flora, and unfortunately he just doesn't complement her at all. So the reason for that is his ultimate skill is only a single target, but a single hit, which means that Flora's passive doesn't trigger anywhere near as much as it would if you were running multi-hitting ultimate champions like RHASH or Tonalnan. But for those of you who don't have Flora, Rash can comfortably slot into your wild teams and deal some amazing damage and help you move up to the next stage of content. So if we start by looking at his kit and the build I'll be running for today's video, so Rash's passive gives him a Heartfire buff every time an ally has a wild check, which can be stacked up to 10 times. So Heartfire guarantees that every time he has a wild check, it's going to pass. And it also amplifies his ultimate skill if you have it active when you use that. So it is really important to pair him with other wild heroes when you're able to. So as for his battle skill, it is technically a small AoE. It hits a single target, then it spreads off to other targets afterwards. It's not the best, but it's just an additional bit of damage during downtime. But what really matters is his ultimate skill. So it's a huge single target hit, and I'm talking massive, which obviously if he has Heartfire, it will deal 30% more damage and boost his ultimate energy by 20%, which just allows him to use the skill more frequently. In terms of building Rash, obviously with it being a single target, a single hit, it's really important that you maximise his crit rate. You want to make sure that he's guaranteeing to land a crit every single time he's using it for maximum damage. But outside of that, of course, you want to ramp up his attack and his critical damage as much as possible, whilst also ensuring you've got enough defensive stats to stay alive, especially when it comes to places like Vortex, where obviously your team's taking quite a lot of damage towards the end. You want to make sure that he's not one of the first to die. As for sets, I've played around with both Gambler set and Executioner set at the recommendation of one of my alliance mates. I'm a massive fan of Executioner on him. I personally thought that Gambler would be the way to go initially, but because he's not hitting as frequently as other heroes, it's a huge bonus to gain the 15% ignore defense on his ultimate skill. So I have chosen to go with the Executioner set in this test, and I'm also running the Music Box artifact. Because I'm using him in a team with Adolphus wherever possible, I'm gaining that uptime of 20% damage nearly all the time, and at least for every single ultimate he's using. So if we move over to Vortex, it's the first place I want to showcase Rash because in my opinion it's where he's the most impactful, and we'll be using him alongside Tonalnan. In an ideal world I would also be using RHASH alongside them, but I just can't survive long enough for it to be worth dropping the additional support and running 3 damage dealers. Maybe if I had somebody like Ogok, then I'd change it up and run RHASH in that spot too. So as you can see with my timings, I always have Heartfire available, the shield boost and increase attack for every single ultimate skill, which in the perfect situation is doing over 350,000 damage every time he's using it. So for the run, we'll jump towards the end so that you can kind of get a feel for what he's doing. I don't want to make you sit through over 7 minutes of a run, and we'll see how he's managed to compare to Tonalnan, who, as everybody will know, is top tier when it comes to single target damage, especially on a prolonged fight where he can get a lot of damage out once he's reached 20 stack. So as you can see here, Rash has dealt a huge amount of damage and very nearly kept up with Tonalnan, which is quite impressive because not many heroes can actually do that, and it's pushed the team over the required amount for the top rewards of level 4. Of course, the damage could be significantly more, especially if you've got the right heroes like Flora. But for those who are short of options, Rash can really make a difference and help you get to that top chest. In terms of dungeons, you could make a case for using Rash in any of them realistically. Because of his strong damage and the fact that he's ranged, it does make him a lot easier to slot into your teams. And obviously, with him being Fire Element, he lines up perfectly with heroes like Throbath, who's really common in teams, as well as some of the healers that you have throughout the game, including Hexandra that you start with. It just makes it a lot easier to pair him and get the most of your damage. So I personally use Rash in Grave of Venom, and I'll show you how impactful Rash can be in a team that is fairly achievable for most using the exact same gear as we've shown already. So if I leave this to run, and there we go, a 55-second run. While Rash isn't the top damage, he certainly will be to the boss, as obviously Sigrid here is hitting all 3 targets consistently, and I mean, she's also broken, which doesn't help. But having a consistently fast team for Grave of Venom is, in my opinion, one of the most important things in Dragonheir every season, as it's the dungeon that you'll want to spend the most time in when it comes to gear, because there's just so many damage dealers that you'll need to worry about, especially later on in the season where you're needing to build a team for every element, normally consisting of at least 2 or 3 damage dealers. Your gear does just run thin unless you're putting in the effort to farm Grave of Venom. As for the other dungeons, if we go to Grave of Curse, I've got Rash in the team. He doesn't get the 5 elemental bonus as I use Vinyara for stripping the boss's buffs, and I don't use other wild heroes alongside him here, but he does remain my best option for single target damage. So this run once again is using the exact same gear again, as I've got Adolphus providing the shields to make the most of the music box artifacts. And there we go. It's really not the fastest, but it's fast enough for me. It's not a dungeon that you'll be farming very frequently, but as you can see, Rash, without any other wild heroes supporting him, is doing a huge amount of single target damage. And obviously this run is consistent, and that's the main thing for me. I want to make sure that if I'm putting my time into doing a run, I can walk away and let it do its own thing. I don't have to worry about coming back and it being dead. So in terms of other dungeons, I don't personally use Rash in Grave of Rot or Ancient Battlefield just because he doesn't slot into my team. I use Sigrid as the sole damage dealer in those runs, and her attack penalty is just vital for me, and the heal reduction as well in Grave of Rot. But I will go over to Heretical Ruins, where Rash is back into the team alongside Tonelin with the 5x elemental bonus. So in this run, his role is so vital because you need a hero who's capable of quickly killing the small phoenixes when they spawn to prevent them from healing and obviously buffing the boss. And Tonelin will only actually target the far phoenix if the phoenix on her side is dead and if the boss has invisibility. Otherwise she'll target the closest target to her, which would once again be the boss. So having that ranged hero who can quickly deal with the far phoenix is so important, so that you can get added uptime on the boss and obviously kill it, but also preventing the boss from getting buffed and healed and killing your team off. But this run obviously just shows how impactful Rash can be. Tonelin really is no joke when it comes to single target damage, and being able to compete with Tonelin and effectively work in a team together to kill a boss quickly and efficiently, it's just incredible. And I know a lot of people would have picked up Tonelin from the $1 epic box if they were lacking him. Anyway guys, that's all for today's video. If you have anything you'd like to add about Rash, if you use him in any areas, please do drop a comment, let me know. I'd obviously be curious to see what other people are doing with the hero. I personally got him a few days ago and I'm really enjoying him so far. He's definitely finding his way into more teams, so I'm looking forward to trying him out a little bit more throughout the rest of the season, especially in some of the upcoming challenges that we'll get through the Underworld bosses and also the Continental challenges. But thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.